So today I'm going to be reviewing the Madeira patch iron-on backing, specifically called the E-ZEE Heat Seal. And I'm also going to be comparing it against a very popular option, which is Heat and Bond Ultra. So I have a business, I sell patches, I've been doing it for years, and I sell quite a few, so I have about a year and a half, maybe 2 years of experience using Heat and Bond Ultra, and I have just over a year of experience with the Madeira. And the reason why I decided to switch to the Madeira was because I just wasn't confident in the Heat and Bond's ability to hold. I mean, at first, I didn't really think anything special about it, that there was anything wrong with Heat and Bond Ultra, because it was just like pretty much anything else that I had used as a consumer, like growing up buying patches. And, it was always kind of a rule of thumb that you would iron on a patch and then you would sew around it because the iron-on adhesive is not very powerful. And the same thing was true with the Heat and Bond Ultra. But I was also I just was a little bit concerned that I would send something to a customer and they would be unhappy with it, and their unhappiness would be as a result of something that I have nothing to do with. Like, say for example, a patch. I really put a lot of work into my patches and they take a long time to make. So if there's going to be a problem, I'd rather it be my fault rather than just the thing that I stuck on it at the last moment, I don't want that to be the problem. So to me, I think it's worth getting a nicer iron-on backing for that. So I had customers saying that it wasn't holding very well. Very few customers, to be honest with you. Most people, they didn't really have a big deal with it. But I had a few customers saying that it wasn't holding very well, and I also had a few customers that was saying that it was peeling off the back of the patch itself because it doesn't really stick that well. And my heat process, my iron-on process, is that I use a heat press. So I'm using professional grade equipment here to adhere these to the patch itself, and it would still come off very easily and delaminate. So there's that. So for that reason, I wanted to try something a little bit nicer, and I was curious why Madeira charged so much for this. I think it was like 5 times more per square inch, but it's a lot cheaper now that I have a business license and have registered it with Madeira. So anyways, let's get into this. Let's talk about some of the differences here. So this patch right here, each of these patches is 2 layers of cutaway stabilizer and 1 layer of cotton fabric. So it is a pretty substantial patch. It's pretty hefty, but at the same time, it's also got a lot of thread too, as you can see. But at the same time, it's very pliable. It's soft. For whatever reason, it's thick, but it's nice. The same feeling basically holds true for the Heat and Bond Ultra. It's got this flimsy sort of. Maybe that's what you're looking for, and I don't necessarily think that this is a bad thing because I'll show you in a minute, but it's very malleable. But when I go to the Madeira, this is like, it's substantial. Like it's more rigid, and it just feels like it's a nicer patch. It just feels like the quality. In my opinion, quality is a very subjective thing, but I think somebody gets this as like the solid thing. They're like, man, that's a nice patch right there. Especially if you're using fabric backing and you like to actually have the fabric show through, as I do, and actually play with the fabric in it. Yeah. So another thing is that the Heat and Bond Ultra has this kind of gummy sort of texture to it, while the Madeira is like smooth and it's just like it's on there. It feels like it's on there, whereas this, it's like gummy and I can push it and I can tell that it's not fully laminated. But as I said, the Madeira is a lot more rigid, but when you iron it on, so I ironed this on and it's been sitting for over an hour. So this is the Heat and Bond Ultra, this is the Madeira. And the Heat and Bond Ultra is still just as malleable, but for some reason the Madeira, it's also, it's about as malleable, I think. It's definitely not as rigid in its solid form. For some reason, it feels more softer when it's on fabric itself. This is a cotton fabric, and I'm going to try and rip these off just to show you the difference. So this is Heat and Bond Ultra, this is Madeira. So you got to find a good place to get started here. Okay, here we go. So Heat and Bond Ultra. Okay, so that's a bit of force. I'm not going to pretend and say that that was easy to pull off, but I did just iron this on, and we have to imagine that a garment is going to be washed numerous times, and the water is always going to erode the adhesive over time. So over time, this is going to be easier to come off. So with my customers, I always recommended whenever I use the Heat and Bond Ultra that they would iron it, then sew around it. So moving on, let's get to the Madeira. Okay, here we go. Okay, so as you can see, it was a lot harder to pull off. It was a lot harder to pull off, and there's no residue. So the E-ZEE Heat Seal is actually advertised. You can actually see it was ripping parts of the fabric off that it was so strong. It's not like that with the Heat and Bond Ultra. This is like taking fabric away. But the E-ZEE Heat Seal from Madeira, they actually advertise that you can reheat it, peel it off, and transfer it to another garment, and then press it, and it will stick again. I've never tried that. Don't necessarily recommend it, but I think maybe you could probably get away with it. Because the garment, the fabric here doesn't have staining or anything like that. But I would say to only transfer it if your original garment is foobar, like you can't repair it, it's just done, you know, if it's expended its lifespan. So I want to get into how I actually apply these. So the differences in the way that you apply these, the Heat and Bond Ultra, you just put the patch on it, you press it down, and then you heat press it. Typically I have my heat press set to 235 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, or maybe 240, and I leave it in there for 30 seconds. And with the Heat and Bond Ultra, all you have to do to really prepare it is just peel it off, and it stays like this, and there's this ring on it where the adhesive used to be. So I feel like Heat and Bond Ultra is the best for DIY people because it really simplified the process of just doing it, right? You can use a regular home iron for this, no problem. You just peel it off, it's easy to go. The Madeira, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated to use. So the Madeira, you would do it the same way, put the patch, and then you would iron it like that for the same temperature, but there's a little bit more process to it. So if you're just doing one patch like this, you can just leave it, once you turn it back upside down, the right side up, you can just leave it, and the top side here, it can solidify enough that you can peel it off. I wouldn't recommend cutting around it like some people might do with the Heat and Bond Ultra because it's just a lot harder to get the paper off the back once you've cut it for some reason. So it's best to just leave it right side up and let it cure for a bit and become more solid. Then you can peel it and cut it. But if you're like me and you're actually producing patches, I mean, when we're talking about $100 a roll and you're getting 10 yards of iron-on backing, typically speaking, you're going to be a business. So you're probably producing patches in bulk where it's like maybe 11 patches on a sheet. And I would highly recommend that after you iron them on, you flip it upside down, you let it set face side up for about 5 to 10 minutes, then you peel it and flip it upside down and then let that sit for about maybe 5 or so minutes or so. The reason for that being is that if you're just doing a single patch, you can peel the iron-on backing off and then you can cut around it easily. But if you're doing bulk patches on a sheet like this, on a large sheet, then it's going to start doubling over on itself because it's still tacky. It's going to start sticking to itself, and when it does, like this is it's hard to explain. This is not like tape. This is like a sheet of paper that's made out of glue. It's that substantial and thick, basically. It's like a sheet of paper. So when this stuff sticks to itself and it dries, it gets really hard. And you're going to be cutting all these patches, and it's going to be kind of shrinking and it's going to be warping. So you definitely want to let the material cure and re-solidify before you peel it off the paper, then you can cut it out. Another thing is that personally, I'm running this business from my home, so I don't really have this rack where I can store rolls and rolls of material. I store them in drawers, so that means I pre-cut them. So if you're going to do that, you need to store it face down, because I realize that if you store it face up, and by the way, the roll, the 10-yard roll, as far as I know, is the only way that you can purchase this iron-on backing. But if you leave it face up, it starts to peel away and it'll just start rolling up. And I noticed that whenever this happens, like, you would think that you should just be able to press that down and then use that. But I noticed that it's not 100%, but there is a chance that the adhesive will actually stick to the paper here. You definitely don't want to have it fall off completely and use the wrong side, because that'll stick 100%. But you definitely don't want this delamination that's currently going on. So you got to store it face down. Aside from that, I would advise customer care a little bit differently with this. Because the Madeira, it takes longer to cure and re-solidify compared to the Heat and Bond Ultra. I recommend my customers to wait for the patch to cool before testing it, because this has the property of being transferable. So when it's in that softened state, you can pull it off pretty easily. So you need to advise customers to wait for it to cool and before they test it. And also I advise customers to use a lot of pressure, because with the Heat and Bond Ultra, they can take a home iron and they can do this number with it, right? They can just do the traditional ironing style. But this needs pressure. It needs force. And a lot of times, for one, home irons are probably might not get hot enough to do the job, because you don't really know what condition their iron is in. And also, people tend to have really rickety ironing boards. So I always recommend that my customers take a textbook or something and either put it on a table or on the floor, and then take their iron and just bear down on it for 30 seconds and just full force it down. And then wait for it to cool and test it. And then I have no complaints. You know, I sell directly to martial arts studios like judo schools and all kinds of stuff where people are grappling around, fighting on each other, and they're constantly sweating and washing their uniforms. And I have no complaints with the Madeira, none yet. And I think it's good stuff, and I think it's worth the extra money. So anyways, if you have any questions, let me know, or if you have any other recommendations for products that you think work. Like, if you've tried Madeira and you've tried something else that works better and is cheaper, then please let me know. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later. I take requests too, if you have requests, something you'd like to see me talk about. Later.